Hello and welcome to the conference number 22 of this self-knowledge course. We will be talking about meditation. We will learn what meditation is, what are the types of meditation that exist, and how to meditate. We will begin then by explaining what meditation is. Meditation is the bread of the wise. It is the way to acquire wisdom. It is the way through which we connect with the Father to acquire wisdom. Wisdom in which the mind does not interfere, but it is received through intuition. That is why the mind must be silent. A person who wants wisdom should meditate daily. Just like the human body needs food on a daily basis, we must feed our consciousness daily, and this is done through meditation. In life, the only important thing is the radical, total, and definitive change. The rest, frankly, does not have the least importance. Meditation is fundamental when we sincerely want such a change. In no way do we desire inconsequential, superficial, and vain meditation. We need to get serious and put aside so much nonsense that abounds out there in cheap pseudo-esotericism and pseudo-occultism. So, we are going to say that there are two types of meditation. Contemplative meditation. There are many of these everywhere, and they are contemplative because they lead us to states of relaxation, either by listening to a sound, music, imagining certain things, etc., etc. However, when we finish such meditations, the state of relaxation is lost for whatever reason, and we realize that we are still the same, having the same defects and making the same mistakes. We finish, for example, meditating and go down the street and someone bumps into us, and that's where our anger comes out. We have not changed anything. The other type of meditation is transcendental meditation. And within this category, we have reflective meditation, which is what we are going to be explaining today, and transcendental meditation, through which we can access the sixth and seventh dimensions of nature, the higher dimensions, also known as the heaven, and bring wisdom from there. Later in the course, we will be explaining how this transcendental meditation is done using a technique called koans. Well, you have to know how to be serious. You have to know how to change if you really don't want to fail in your esoteric work. The one who does not know how to meditate, the superficial, will never be able to dissolve the ego. He will always be an impotent log in the furious sea of life. The material that we will use for meditation are the scenes of our life. We can only withdraw wisdom from those scenes and situations that we have experienced. Our life is a movie made up of scenes, and some actors participate in those scenes. And let's remember that these actors are our multiple psychological defects that are manifested through us. Therefore, if we want to radically change our lives, we have to eliminate the actors who participate in these scenes. The situations of the practical life must be deeply understood through the technique of meditation. The didactic material for meditation is found precisely in the different events or circumstances of the practical life, our daily life. Circumstances both pleasant and unpleasant, since we came here to extract wisdom from good and evil. Any circumstance must be reconstructed through conscious imagination through the technique of meditation. The reconstruction of any scene allows us to verify for ourselves directly the intervention of various participating defects in it. Example, a scene of love and jealousy. We may see there the eyes of anger, jealousy, and even hate. They intervene in it. Understanding each one of these defects is one of these factors implies, in fact, deep reflection, concentration, and meditation. People always protest against unpleasant events. They don't know how to see the utility of such events. Instead of protesting against unpleasant circumstances, we must extract from them, through meditation, the useful elements for our spiritual growth. And it must be said that it is from unpleasant events that we can extract the most wisdom. Conflict situations, sadness, antipathy, poverty, suffering, a specific defect that we want to work on, a certain wrong way of being that we want to change. All of this is material for meditation. Also from pleasant situations, such as lustful situations, states of being in love, vices and addictions, states of frenzy and fun, since all this leads us to feed our defects with our energy. For example, if we go to a party, there are many defects that move there, such as alcohol, drugs, lust, dancing, insubstantial talk, gossip, flirting, etc., etc. Meditation on this or that pleasant or unpleasant circumstance allows us to feel the flavor, the result. Is necessary to make a full psychological differentiation between what is the flavor of work and what is the flavor of life. The flavor of work is the one that comes from the change that we are achieving and experiencing through meditation. We are experiencing through true freedom from those psychological defects that had us subjected and conditioned. We no longer react in the same way. We are unfazed by those things that mechanically used to make us react. I am already indifferent, for example, to those things that made me explode with anger, envy, jealousy, lust, etc., etc. That's the flavor of work. The flavor of life is to be identified with life, with the events and problems of life. The work, family problems, economic problems, personality things, material things, what people will say, pleasures and pains, etc., etc. In any case, in order to feel the flavor of work in oneself, a total inversion of the attitude with which the circumstances of existence are normally taken is required. No one could enjoy the flavor of work as long as they made the mistake of identifying with the various events of life. That is why we must see the circumstances of life as material and opportunity for a change. Certainly, the identification prevents a proper psychological appreciation of the events. When we identify with this or that event, in no way can we extract from it the useful elements for self-discovery and inner growth of consciousness. The moment we fall into identification with this or that event, it is because we have lost the state of self-observation, which is the only form of self-discovery. If we do not discover the elements or defects that interfere in such and such a circumstance, but rather we allow ourselves to become identified with them, we cannot reach the prosecution of that defect and subsequently its elimination. As we make use of the sense of psychological observation, the latter will also develop wonderfully. Then we will be able to perceive the eyes during the meditation work. It is interesting to perceive internally the eyes, not only before they have been worked on, but also during the entire work. When these eyes are decapitated and disintegrated, we feel great relief and great happiness. We feel free. The esoteric worker who returns to identification after having lost his guard, the state of self-observation, again feels the flavor of life instead of the flavor of work. The various pleasant or unpleasant events exist with us or without us, and are continually repeated mechanically. The problems are of life. The problems are of life, and if there were a final solution, life would not be life but death. Life is a wheel. We need to see life as a wheel that turns mechanically with all the pleasant and unpleasant circumstances always recurring. We cannot stop the wheel. Good or bad circumstances are always processed mechanically. We can only change our attitude towards the events of life. Then there may be modification of the circumstances and of the problems. As we learn to extract the material for meditation from among the very circumstances of existence, we will discover and get to know ourselves. Okay? So now we are going to be explaining how reflective meditation is done. Well, first we need a quiet place where there is no noise or we would be interrupted. Then we do the conjuration of the belly link and magic circle as we learned in lecture 7 to clean the environment. Then comes the plea for assistance to the Father and the Divine Mother so that they direct us in this meditation. Then we move on to relaxation of emotion, which we will do through breathing. We inhale and exhale until there is no tension in the emotion. Then comes the relaxation of the mind, which we will do by listening to sounds for 1 minute. And finally, the relaxation of the physical body, where we will use our imagination to feel all the parts of our body and order them to calm down, to relax and distend. The next step is to reconstruct a certain scene or event. If we do not remember it perfectly, we can use the mantra Raon Gaon, which is pronounced as follows. Raon Gaon, until we remember the scene perfectly. Then we begin to observe each one of the little details that participate in the scene, observing the thoughts we had, the feelings, the desires that moved there, and the actions we did. It is important that we divide ourselves into observer and observed. Who observes is consciousness, the 3% of free consciousness, and the observed is the ego, the remaining 90% of trapped essence. We must see these scenes like someone watching a movie and wanting to observe carefully the actions of the actors involved. For example, if we are reflecting on a scene of an argument with a co-worker, we must observe that what we were thinking at that moment. We thought about how bad worker he is, that he's a lazy person, that he's a prepotent person and thinks he's superior. We think about words to offend him. We make suppositions about why he acts the way he acts. We listen all that defects telling us to answer him back, to insult him, even to punch him. In our feelings, we feel anger, frustration, even fear. We have, at that moment, the desires to argue, to offend and insult him, to attack him and punch him, and even to kill him. Why not? In our actions, we proceed to offend him and insult him with our words. We make gestures of anger and contempt. We threw some object at him or get into a physical fight. If we are reflecting on a lustful scene, for example, we saw an attractive man or lady in a street and we observed the thoughts we had, we may observe the defects telling us how attractive that person is, how beautiful his hair, his body. We start planning how to approach that person, how to get to know him and seduce him. We start idealizing that person, thinking about a future with that person, imagining lustful scenes with that person, and so on. In our feelings, we may observe that feeling of being in love, the nervous and fear we feel while being in front of that person. We most observe the desires we had, the desire to talk to that person, the attraction we felt, the desire to copulate with that person, the desire to have a relationship with that person. We most observe how our sexual center activates, and we felt the sensation of sexual excitement. And of course, our actions, what we did. Maybe we made a compliment to that person, we made some flirtatious gestures, we asked that person for her or his phone, etc., etc. We must judge ourselves ruthlessly. We must observe ourselves as we really are right now in order to understand this is not part of our being and withdraw the wisdom from the defect. We cannot evade ourselves. Then we beg the Divine Mother for death to every detail understood with the phrase, Divine Mother, eliminate this I from me. In order for the Mother to act, the defect must have been previously observed and understood. We must understand we are observing a defect, an ego, that is not part of our real being. A defect that has caused damage to ourselves and others. A defect that only wants to rob our energy. Some observations we must take into account are: when reconstructing a scene, we must not identify with it. For example, if we are studying a scene of anger and we identify with that anger, we will not be able to observe the defects of the anger that is manifesting. In no case should we accept the justification or evade ourselves. If we are studying a conflict scene with another person, a justification would be to say that the other person was the one who started, that he was the one who offended me first, and that it was my duty to defend myself. We must eliminate all the justifications that are presented, since they detract from the objective of eliminating the defect. Since, in a certain way, with the justifications, we are defending what we did. We are giving the reason to the defect with these justifications. Also, remember that we are going to judge ourselves, not others. If we are studying a fight scene with our partner, it is common that we want to judge the actions of the couple, of our partner, and how he or she should change. We begin to find his faults and think that he should change so that I wouldn't get so angry and get in such a bad mood, that he is the one to blame for making me get in this state. That marked tendency to blame others is an obstacle to understanding our own mistakes. Unfortunately, it is very difficult, it's a very difficult task to destroy in ourselves the tendency to blame others. It is our defects that we are going to observe and blame, not those of others. Also, it is important to put ourselves in the point of view of others, not trying to experience or feel what the other person felt or assuming why they did this or that, but rather reflecting on the times that we have acted in the same way and observing the defects that participated in that performance, why they did it, how they manifested, etc., etc. This will make us discover that same defect within ourselves, and that then we come to the understanding of our own defect, and that could and then we could understand the actions of the other person. This eliminates criticism and judgment towards others. Finally, we must repeat this practice every time we have the opportunity. The interested student should not go to bed without reflecting on the various details of the day. So, it would be good to start doing it daily, even for 15 or 20 minutes at first. Then the time will get longer. And well, this has been today's conference, and the recommendation is to put this into practice so that we can advance in our inner work and with psychological depth in the elimination of our defects. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have any question, leave it in the comment section, and we invite you next Thursday to conference number 23 entitled Fanaticism and Mythomania. We will learn about two defects that greatly hinder our inner progress and divert us from the true spiritual path. Bye-bye.